So first I want to say thanks to the organizers for inviting me to come speak with you. I grew up working as a migrant seasonal farm worker, and so I was really excited / nervous to come speak to people who are farmers. My history with farm work has been exploitive and aggressive, and I'm trying to heal a lot of that. So being in this space right now with so many genuinely kind and giving people is really changing my history with farm work. And the panel this morning, I mean, can we just give an applause to people? That was a master class in culture, reclamation, farm work, farm working. I just sat there in the back row and I was in awe, and then I started crying because I'd never seen people like me want to be farmers, people who are black and brown and wanting to reclaim that part of our culture. And I just thought, this is a shift in who I am and how I'm going to write about farm work. But I'm going to share with you some pieces that I've previously wrote before this shift happened. So in case you want to know where you can find some of my work, there's a journal that's called The Common, and they have a farm worker portfolio that I co-edited. And we have people from all over the country, established writers, people who are first-time writers, who come from a farm worker background and who are writing about farm work. And it's really the first time that I think I've ever seen this happen. So if you want to get in touch with me afterwards, I can tell you where to go, or it's just called The Common Magazine if you want to go to the website. The online version is fine, it's free. The print version, I think, is like $15 or something. So, okay, so the first piece I'm gonna read you is called Half Moon, Part 1. Days into the promise of a new year, resolutions plentiful, blossoming, 7 farm workers were shot and killed harvesting mushrooms in Half Moon Bay, California. Those of us who sprouted from families whose hands and backs worked the land waited for news of our farm worker siblings. We waited for empathetic profiles eulogizing our dead and allowing us to mourn with their families, with our farm worker community. We waited for stories offering insight into their humanity, of those they left behind. We waited to learn of their accomplishments and their aspirations. Instead, we got bullet points listing their names, ages, perhaps countries of origin, or fragmented descriptions of their relationships. They weren't even deemed worthy of the standard mass shooting reporting, just bullet points, bulleted points for these victims. Another act of violence. There were no thoughts or prayers from politicians or leaders for our farm workers whose labor brought food to our tables and whose lives uplifted the community. Those of us who sprouted from farm worker families whose hands and backs worked the land know that violence has always been part of our story. The continuous violence of the burning sun, of the numbing frost, of dehydration, of carcinogenic pesticides, of wildfires, sexual assault, child labor, threats of deportation, poverty, exploitation, dehumanization, sharpened knives, machetes, hoes, shears, and guns. Guns that killed farm workers in the early days of organizing for fair wages, to the mass shootings of the workplace violence of today. Our workplace has always been violent, and you've always ignored it. So since our hands are essential in the work that we do as farmers and farm workers, this is a piece I wrote about our hands. The work of our hands. I never thanked my mother's hands, whose hands sewed clothes for me and my sisters, that made comida out of a sparse pantry, that prayed and handcrafted rosaries, hands that cleaned other people's houses and other people's children. I never thanked my sister's hands that worked dutifully and cared for me when my mother could not, and that helped me with my homework. Often it was their young hands, overworked hands, that scraped together the rent, and to this day, it is their hands that mean the most to me. I never thanked the work of my father's hands, who sliced fresh flesh from carcasses in chilled meatpacking plants, hands that helped me move, that change my oil, tired hands that say I love you when his words cannot. I never think the work of my tia Noche's hands that showed me how to work efficiently in my first job out of high school at the explosive factory. Her hands invited me to work puzzles spread out on the dining room table, the one only used for special occasions. I never think the work of my friends' hands that offered me welcoming handshakes, enthusiastic support, comforting hugs. Their talented hands show me what is possible. I never think the work of the hands of the men I loved, skilled hands that tilled soil, picked fruit, danced across keyboards, augmented machinery, hands that caressed my face and whose gentle fingers traced my lips, hands that in public and in private search for and unfold mine. All these loving hands that wipe counters, chalkboards, windshields, as well as sweaty brows and mournful tears, they proudly pat my back or gently take my arm. They reach for me when I am lost. Nor have I ever thanked my own hands, the hands that worked the hands that clenched a garden hoe as I worked and walked uneven rows, that blistered and cracked and bled under an assiduous sun. These many hands, laboring, supported my searching soul, encouraged my mind to reflect and to finally thank the work of our hands. This is a piece that I wrote for a special issue of a journal that honored Juan Philip Herrera, who was the first Latino poet laureate of the United States, and he was also a farm worker. It's called This is a Migrant Poem. This is a migrant poem, a farm working poem, a poem that covers itself in long sleeves to avoid the burning sun. This poem drinks enough water to avoid dehydration, but not enough to get water sickness. It carries a machete, a hoe, a spade, a knife sheared and file for filo. This poem walks irrigated rows, collecting mud on its boots that adds 5 pounds to each foot. This poem guards the cornfield where his sisters, mothers, cousins squat to pee. This poem ducks down, hitting the ground, avoiding the echoing crop duster, spraying anti-poem toxins that burn our eyes and throats. This poem is egg and chorizo burritos in aluminum foil, steamed shut by the heat, waiting for lonche in a steam cooler at the end of the rows of soybean. This poem smells of blood and meat. This poem flows from carcasses into open drains of slaughterhouses, on kill floors, in chilled freezers, with knives cutting, always cutting. This poem that gets take knives into this poem's hand so it can cut even when its hands can cut no longer. This poem is a gift of a strong back, sturdy legs, silence, patience, and a never-ending work ethic. A never-ending work ethic, a never-ending ethic of work. This poem is pragmatic, strategic, erratic. This poem climbs ladders, stoops over, pulls from branches, vines, and roots, and unearths other poems and tosses them into buckets and sacks slung across its stanzas. This poem is paid by the word, by the piece, by the hour, by the day, by the acre. This poem has no benefits, no days off, no health insurance, no child care. This poem is child labor. This poem is sexual assault. This poem is deportation, missing wages, broken vehicles, sunstroke. And this poem avoids the ditches where La Llorona hopes to drown it. This poem knows that she commands the water and sends waves of humidity, tempting mirages and cooling ripples of flames. This poem wears a rosary and a scapular and prays to St. Francis of Assisi for protection from the rats and the snakes that live in the fields, and to St. Michael the Archangel for the strength for when the farmer's son watches his sisters, follows his sisters, pulls at his sisters. This poem wakes up early, works all day, sweats all day. This poem needs water to wash off the dirt, to wash away the dirt, to wash out the dirt. This poem goes to bed early to do it again tomorrow. This poem is a migrant poem, a farm working poem. They're not all heavy like that. There's some joy and gift that working in the fields gives you. And like in the previous poem, it gives you the gift of a work ethic and of patience and to know what silence is. And I just remember one of the most beautiful things I remember about working in the fields is, we get up at 3 in the morning and go and drive there, and by 6 in the morning we arrive at the field, and you can just see the sun starting to come up. And this was in the Texas Panhandle, where everything is just flat and, well, kind of like the Midwest, kind of like Kansas. You see these big open, prairies and landscape, and you see the sun coming up, and you just think, that is God right there. It's you and God doing the work together, and that's one of the blessings that you get when you work with your hands and you work on farms and you are people who can notice those things. People don't have that view that we get, and I am thankful that I've had it in my life. This poem is called 4 a.m. Actually, let me get a drink of water. 4 a.m. Mama's chorizo sizzles and pops. A fork scrambles eggs in a coffee cup. Oldest sister stirs onions and peppers. With her free hand, she flips the tortillas. Middle sister's hands fold and wrap. Youngest one packs burritos in brown paper sacks. 5 a.m. and I've loaded the tools in the truck. We're off to pick the other workers up. We arrive at 6, we'll be ready to start, but I'm already tired just from this part. Break comes at 9, lunch at noon, last break at 2, then we'll be home soon. 4 p.m. we pack and drive back. That makes 10 hours. I'd eat $1.25, but I'm young, so I only earn 0.75. At 6 p.m. we finally arrive home, take long baths and wash all our clothes. Mom cooks dinner, then at 8 p.m. we're off to bed to do it all over again. That's how I spent my summers since I was 10. These are 2 short poems. One is called April Showers. They say that spring brings rebirth, but for many children, it means an abrupt end to school and to friends. Nourishing rain brings work, cultivating crops of corn and soybean that need tending and weeding from young hands. They say that spring brings rebirth, but I know that April showers bring migrant flowers. This piece is called Berries. When you're a migrant and you get pulled out of school early and you come back to school late, the really only resource you have is the library. That's where you go to catch up on all the classes you missed and to try and do your homework before you have to go and do more work. So for me, the library was always a safe place to be and a place where I learned when my teachers couldn't teach me. So this is called Berries. Picking blueberries is where we begin. Picking blackberries stains my skin. Picking strawberries hurts Mama's back. Picking raspberries is when we come back. But of all the berries my hands pick, my favorite is the one that makes me homesick. I fill my bag with so much to carry, but I'm happy because it's the library. So I know that we have some young people in the audience and people who maybe have never gone to college before, and this is a piece that I wrote because I work at a community college and I work in a library, and I just thought this is my duty to kind of tell young people and people who have never been to college about what it's like to be in college. First, when you are the first to go to college, you carry the hopes and dreams of your family. They want you to succeed because your success is their success. When you are the first to go to college, your brothers and sisters and cousins see your world becoming larger, and they want to walk into that world of possibilities. When you are the first to go to college, your tios and your tias who dropped out blink away tears of envy, of pride and envy, and they pull you close into their loving embrace. Your soul feels their desire for the life that they could have had and the person they could have become, and you shut your eyes tightly, feeling guilty for your ability to choose freedom from their minimum wage paychecks. When you are the first to go to college, those close to you want you to work hard, yet they demand you stay the same. They don't understand that going to the library isn't a rejection or that you're too good to hang out with them. You're not disrespectful, nor have you forgotten where you came from when you skipped family gatherings or birthday dinners in order to study for finals. When you are the first to go to college, you walk alone into the unfamiliar with no guiding hand to hold nor empathetic eyes on which to gaze. You keep so much inside because they wouldn't and they couldn't understand this kind of pressure. Besides, what right do you have to complain about achieving your dream? When you're the first to go to college, everyone expects you to have a plan. Everyone expects you to finish on time. Everyone expects you to know what you're doing. Everyone expects you to help. Everyone expects something from you. And late at night, when the formulas and definitions evade your mind, when the theories and textbooks tighten on your chest, when your vision blurs from hours of working on the screen, and you just think you can't go on, remember your family whose generations of sacrifice provided this opportunity. Remember your friends who understood you and supported you in ways that your family could not. Remember your teachers, the ones who said you could do it and the ones who said you couldn't. But most of all, remember yourself and the courage and the patience and the fortitude and the persistence required when you are the first to go to college. So this is the first poem that I ever wrote about farm work. There was a program at KU called Harvest of Hope Leadership Academy, and they would bring migrant kids from all over the state, and they would go to KU for like a month, and they would learn how to choose their classes, how to get themselves dressed, and go to class. It was totally different than high school, what they do. And so by the second week, it's usually around Father's Day, and they're starting to miss their parents and their moms, and so they contacted a group that I was with called the Latino Writers Collective, and they said, could you come speak to these kids because they're lonely and they don't have any other contact with adults. And since I used to work as a farm worker kid, I thought this is my opportunity to write a poem that speaks to who they are and the truth about farm work. And I was really kind of nervous because you're not supposed to say anything bad about your mom in the Latino community or in any community. But in this poem, I thought I need to show the positive and the negative about the situation, or else they'll just think I'm a fake. You know, like oh, it'll get better, you know, all that kind of stuff. But they need somebody to say, I see you, and I know the shoes that you've been in. So that's what this poem is about. It's called Madre de los Campos. He wasn't good enough to look at her, but at the end of each week, she'd wear a smile that apologized for her skin. He'd talk to her in ways that diminished her. He'd cheat her out of wages that we'd earned with sweat. Returning to the hot station wagon, she'd hand everyone their money, and she'd pay herself last with what was left over. Sitting next to her as she drove everyone home, I seethed. I hated her for letting him talk to her that way and for giving our money away to those lazy cabrones who didn't work as hard, who didn't bring their lunches or even water. I'd cry hot, angry tears that plowed the dirt on my face, and I vowed never to be as stupid as her. When she dropped the last person home, she'd pull out the egg and chorizo burritos she made us early that morning for lunch that day. It was her lunch that she hadn't eaten. And as my sisters and I shared my mom's comida, she'd give me a smile that apologized for hurting me, but not for loving me. And I did the same. So this final piece I'm going to read is it's a piece that I wrote with my sisters, and I'm so happy that I was able to do that. They are not writers, but they are fantastic storytellers. And I told them I was doing this farm worker portfolio, and I just wanted some of their memories because they did farm work longer than I did, and I was younger and they were older, so they remember a lot more details. And then what they sent me, I just thought, that is so beautiful. I'm just gonna have to give them co-credit for writing this piece. And this is called Sisters. I grew up working in a farm-working family. No, that's not accurate. That is incomplete. I grew up working in a family of farm-working women. The hands of our sisters, our tias, our cousins, our abuelas have worked the fields, worked to feed us, worked to raise us, worked to protect and provide for us. I love my mom, but the truth is my sisters raised me. Farm work would not survive without women, nor would farm worker families. Number 1, Debbie. I don't think anybody in our family knows this, but I learned to drive when I was working in the fields. At dawn, Tia Lucia, who assigned us our rows to weed, she would give the youngest one two on each side. The older kids had more. Reaching the end of the rows, we'd turn around and have to walk all the way back, and by then the truck was about 20 or 30 feet from where we'd started. One day Lucia asked if I knew how to drive, and when I said no, she taught me right there on the spot how to drive that short distance. And soon it was my responsibility, and for a few moments I could get off my feet and sit in the shade. Eventually I drove us from field to field, off the farm's dirt roads, to the main road, to the highway, and that's how I learned to drive. Before the farmer could irrigate the arid crops, we'd clear them of weeds. He'd pump directly water from the Ogallala aquifer underlying the high plains. The clear, plentiful water flowed through the newly trenched irrigation ditches, and we'd fill our containers with delicious yet somehow still ice-cold water, satiated as the crops that we tended. Cloudy days usually meant rain, which excited us because we could either take a break or we could quit for the day. Moments before it rained, we felt the cool, calming breeze rush across the fields. A deeply earthly fragrance, petrichor, preceded that rain that night, which usually followed a long dry spell. Like the water from the aquifer, it refreshed us. Number 2, Melinda. Despite only having 30 minutes to eat, we had the best lunches. Our morning thoughts centered on the burritos with papas or beans or pork or steak or whatever it is that Mom made us early that morning. Lunch was the best part of the day outside of quitting time. We elude the assiduous sun by resting in the shade of the truck or in the nearby cornfield. We couldn't take off our shoes because then our hot pulsating feet would swell and we wouldn't be able to get our shoes back on. We resisted the urge to drink too much water because then we'd get sick. Besides, I hated the embarrassment of having to relieve myself in the field. Lots of gossiping and storytelling happened in the fields. Birth stories, death stories, and everything in between, family history. I desperately wanted to share stories that I could share, but to be part of the group. But even then, when I was young, I had secrets, so I just listened. One summer, my cousin, who worked the fields with us, her father, her dad, finally got caught molesting young girls. Her life unraveled, and she repeatedly tried to commit suicide. After witnessing the fallout of her life, I didn't dare tell my story. Even when Mom specifically asked if I was molested, I said no. Number 3, Grace. For me, it wasn't the hard work or the heat, it was the humiliation. Riding in the back of trucks as we drove home, at the end of the day, I'd see friends I went to school with, and I'd pull my hat down and slide down as far as I could and pray that they didn't see me. We worked a back-breaking 60-hour week, and we only earned $60. Of that, Mom only gave me $3. Once, I worked up the courage to say it wasn't fair and that we should get more, and she slapped me across the face with such contempt in her eyes. Then she grabbed the $3 out of my hand, saying, "Well, now you get nothing." I wish I could say I'm over it, but an inventory of my life begs to differ. Working the fields taught me to walk through the world with my head down. I know other field workers who have found success. They're confident and they stand up for themselves. They claim their accomplishments with gratitude. Today, younger people ask questions. They've decided that they can no longer live an invisible life. They've learned that it all starts with story. Story reminds us that we're alike and that we're more than our circumstances. I'm learning that story is essential to moving forward and taking our seat at the table, a table where together our farm-working hands helped harvest the feast. I really want to say again that how proud I am to be here with all of you today. This whole morning and afternoon has just been revelatory to me, and like I said, it has shifted something in me. And I have you, and I especially have that morning panel to thank for that. So I hope you will look for me in other places and you can see how I've changed in my writing. And if you see me anywhere, just say hi. This farm community, you would think is really big in the Midwest, but it actually is very small. So if we see each other, give me the farmer's hey. Thank you very much.
All right, y'all, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm Dina Newman. I am the founder of Kansas City Black Urban Growers, KC Bugs, part of the planning committee. Shout out, thanks to the planning committee, to the workers. Man, this was fantastic. So congratulations on a very successful, another Farmers and Friends. So we have been fed today, literally, right, and spiritually. I got to meet new friends, got to see some of my old friends. We started the day with, oh man, so as the former last year John Cuyahoga Award, which I'm still very honored and humbled by, to have Ben win it this year. I mean, there's no one more deserving than Ben Sharda. Our panel discussion, we had Daniel remind us that growing food is a form of resistance, and how getting his hands in the soil helped ground him. And then we had Crystal and Ponta move us with moving memories of history and heritage and culture. Cilantro is not from Mexico, y'all, okay? And corn is gonna be all right? Corn has got a bacteria that feed itself. Crystal claiming what is rightfully hers. We're witnessing that powerful moment. And I know her ancestors are very proud. And Casa said, we have to eat, right? We have to eat. And he shared how he is able to get this land and grow this food. And he grows beautiful things. And sometimes he makes a profit. And then Elena reminded us the power of community and generational health and wealth. And she challenged us that if we can get back to communal living, if we can get back to caring for one another and loving one another, that, I don't know, maybe we can be healthier, happy people. And then our brother here, Miguel, who spoke truth to power and power to truth, right? Amen. Man, that, I just got goosebumps. And we were reminded of the work that we need to do. Farm Bill's still out there, right? We have a lot of work to do, but we also have great success stories that we've been able to share today as well. And this I do know for a fact. We are truly better together. And I challenge us all as we go into this next year that we make these connections, that we work together, that we forget this scarcity mindset. There is enough for all of us out here, y'all. Right. We can work together, all right? So when we walk away from here, we are going to be this great big farm family. I got so tickled when we were giving away food for Lulu's, and it was like, yeah, okay, but when it was like fish fertilizer, it was, So we are here together, you all, and it's always just great to be in this room together with the farmers and the eaters and the producers and all these good people who make up this work in this community. And I'm just honored, I am so honored to be a part of it. So you all get out there, do what you gotta do what we need to do as a group. Let's work together and make Kansas City better. Thank you.